Welcome back to Build Theory. I'm Aurian Archive, and tonight is a request. It's a Firekin controller. Firekin controller. And the player would like this with Scorpion Shield and Mystic Flight. Now, I did a Firekin in the past. Come on, Mousy, where are you? And on the Firekin in the past, this is from sometime in 2019. This is kind of an older build. It's got the older endurance modifications. Let's see, I'm pretty sure I've done a more recent kinetics. Let's see if I can find it within a reasonable amount of time. And there's a kinetics fire from this year. And what do we got going on here? Okay, this looks like a more modern, or at least for me, modern build. We've got the newer endurance modification sets. And let's see if we've done a controller more recently with a kinetics. Plant, ice, stone, elect can. Okay, I did a can elect last year. Alright, here's our. That was electric control to kinetics. What did we wind up with here? We've got soft cap to smashing lethal energy negative, soft cap to range. Okay, this looks like as good as place as any to start. Let's bring our same build up in the back. We're looking for a controller. Elect Ken. Alright, and now we'll just change to fire control and let's see what all has changed. Alright, so we've lost an apocalypse, we've lost an endurance set, we've lost a confuse, and we lost a slow. Okay. What do we have in here? We're pretty sure we're probably going to be dropping hot feet. And the reason why I say this is that even if you've got the thing is you don't have any native mez protection as a controller. So hot feet might make sense on a dominator where you've got anti-mez, you can hang close and not lose the effect of a constant toggle power. Now, there have been some changes to how powers are supposed to suppress, but hot feet is still maybe not desirable. So we'll keep in mind that maybe we can drop hot feet right off hand. Smoke, we definitely want to keep. We can go ahead and quasi fill in smoke with a 4-set Dark Watchers to spare. And the reason I know that we can fill it in with a 4-set Dark Watchers to spare, because straight 2-hit debuff does not have a defense component. Now, if we had an accurate 2-hit debuff, a defense component would be in play, and I would probably think it's Cloud Senses. Well, maybe Cloud Senses. So we're just going to 4-slot Dark Watchers to spare. We're going to do Chant for Recharge Slow. And right now, let's do a quick look over. Okay, this is actually a scaling build. I don't have any pluses on many of the powers, so we're going to take these pluses off. And we're going to focus on our endurance reduction first. And you might be going, it's a kinetics. You have transference. Yes, you do have transference, but transference comes in very late at level 35. So if you're under level 30, you're not going to have transference. So we kind of want to focus on the endurance first. So we give ourselves all 3 of the endurances, and we're not really worried too much about the 2-hit debuff. And one of the reasons, we'll lock this off, one of the reasons we're not really worried is that right now, With what are we looking at? Do I have hasten turned on? Hasten was taken level 4. No, wait, not level 4. Thanks. Available level 4, play 14. Okay. With hasten up, with siphon speed up, are we running any incarnate powers? Not as of yet. Okay, so just base hasten. Right now we're clocking a 5.24 second recharge on smoke, and smoke has a valid duration of 60 seconds on its debuff. And if we go over to effects, our 2-hit debuff. And again, this is why we're not focusing on pushing the 2-hit debuff. It's because our 2-hit debuff starts at -5%, and this what we've pumped into it, we've only gone to -6.43%. So smoke as a 2-hit debuff is not really giving us a whole lot, but we do have a massive amount of duration on it, and we do have a massive amount of perception. Perception is probably what's going to be important here to keep the player hidden, because you're generally going to use smoke for enemies to not notice you. That it just does 2-hit is kind of a bonus, but the 2-hit modifiers are too low to actually matter against any target where you'd want to have a 2-hit debuff, say an arc villain. Uh, so we'll kind of leave that there. That gives us a recharge debuff, freezes up a slot, which will go ahead and tentatively do slots, auto arrange all slots, and we'll pump that into flash fire. All right, and now we'll look at Bonfire. Now, I already know from previous experience that Bonfire has got to be knockback mitigated. Now, what we're missing right now is we are missing a strong ranged defense, an actual very strong ranged defense. So we'll check our totals here real quick and see that right now, everything else considered, we're still way below soft cap on ranged defense. All right, so what we're going to look at then is overwhelming force does give us a ranged defense. So we're just and it does give us some knockback protection. So going to go ahead and theoretically slot in Bonfire with overwhelming force. Now this is not going to close the gap at all. We've still got around 5% range defense. We're doing good on smashing lethal and definitely doing good on energy. So we're not really worried about those. We just need to make up now some range defense and the powers that we got left. Now in flash fire, we presently have Cinders picked up our controller ATO, and that's 6 slotted. This is chance for sonic damage, but it's on a PBAOE long recharge hold. So Cinders actually isn't doing us a whole lot of good as a power. It's actually one of the ones you can safely drop. And we look over here on fire cages, we have recharge time energy font. So we get an extra pet every time we pop fire cages. That's actually probably pretty useful, so we want to leave that where it is. So right now we could probably sacrifice some on Cinders and pump out Flash Fire. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to take, and if you're wondering on the other one, Paralyzing Blast over on the electric controller is recharge time. Coming back here, base recharge time on Cinders was 240 seconds. Paralyzing Blast is 240 seconds as well, but it's part of the delivery. Paralyzing Blast, it's a ranged AoE, and it has a minus end component, and it applies a significant minus recovery debuff to targets. So this actually makes Paralyzing Blast on electric control a good power to have, despite its silly long recharge time. But over on Cinders, because it's not actually debuffing anything, because all it's doing is just that hold, and it's not even that strong of a hold. It's a really hard sell. Alright, so we're taking slots off of Cinders. And we want to free up enough slots to build out Flash Fire. Alright, now we're going to do slots, auto arrange all slots. And now in Flash Fire, we're going to put that controller ATO set, And we're going to put our chance for sonic damage, so Flash Fire picks up some extra damage on top of its minor fire damage. And actually, if I lock off Flash Fire for a second, you can see that our base damage was, let's take this proc off of here for a second. Our base damage on fire was 1.96 times 5, so around 10 base damage, under 10 base damage at level 50. So just putting the proc on here, our average damage our average damage based on the base recharge time of the power with the controller ATO gives Flash Fire about 106 damage every pop. This actually puts. Do I have any other damage powers? This actually puts it a better, just the proc alone makes this more of a damage power. Alright, so we'll go ahead and finish filling this out. Alright, so we still need ranged defense. Now we know we can pick up some ranged defense with the 2-slot baseless gaze. So we're going to just look at the recharge hold and endurance recharge hold, and since this is a level 30 set, we're going to plus these up all the way. And this doesn't really cap us into anything, but Cinders is at 83 seconds recharge. So we still have hot feet to play with. All right, going back here, we're at 41.75, so we need a significant amount of ranged defense. Now, we don't get any ranged defense. We do get some with pacing of the turtle at 6 slots, so we could do hot feet with a 6-slot pacing of the turtle. Before we do that, though, is there any other powers where we could pick up a significant amount of range defense without interfering with the powers we've already got? And gut reaction is probably not. So we're going to go ahead and take out a full set of pacing of the turtle on hot feet. All right. Now where does this put us? This puts us at 44.88, so just barely. We attune that. That gets us actually a little bit closer. Level 50, level 50. These are already plus 5. We're really focusing on the, actually, let's bring this one up to the front so you can see the, we're focusing on the range defense right here. We are just so close. Yes, we're there with smoke, but we want to actually be there. So we need a little bit more range defense, or we need a little bit more generic defense. Now, where can we pick this up at? This is just giving us fire, cold, and AoE. We're not really into AoE fire, cold at all that way. We just had speed boost all the way up, and we also want to try and fit in Mystic Flight. All right, to fit in Mystic Flight, we're going to do two things. First of all, we're going to drop Hasten. And we're also going to drop Tactics. All right, that'll free us up the sorcery power pool. And over at level 14, we're going to slot in Mystic Flight, and we're going to give it 2 slots with Endurance and Knockback Protection. Now, this actually does pop us over the edge for soft cap defense. And now we've got 1 free slot here. And this is where we're going to play a little silly, and we're going to give Spirit Ward here, and we're going to give ourselves some hit points in Endurance, and we're going to do Heal Endurance, and we're going to do Heal Endurance Recharge. Now, What this has done is that now if we toss Spirit Ward onto a fellow player, we're now getting a hit point and endurance kickback on ourselves. And now we can also throw Spirit Ward onto a Fire Imp and theoretically keep a Fire Imp alive just a little bit longer. We've now got a strong stun in Flash Fire. We haven't lost Cinders. It's picking us up some range defense, so it's still there if we absolutely need to drop an extra hold on top of something. Hot Feet is probably going to toggle on and off, but we've got a strong range defense buff going out there. Uh, and yeah, we could take these and put them on Siphon Speed and drop Hot Feet for something else. I don't really have anything else good in mind that could easily be dropped there. We've picked up Weave and we've got Scorpion Shield. Now, this is going. Another factor here is that this is only going to be into defensive soft capped very late in the build because it's reliant on Weave and maneuvers to close the gap. But uh, without Weave and maneuvers, crucially, it is at 35% range soft cap at scaling, which basically means as soon as these enhancements take effect, or the lowest level enhancement with a defense component takes effect, which is Cinders, which have Basilisk Gaze, you will be into a defensive range soft cap. So basically, where the IOs kick in is where you will have 35% ranged defense, and this should be enough if you're playing with teammates or you've got any other kind of mitigation, that most enemies probably are going to not hit you at lower levels. And the math is kind of funky there. There's the average percentage of attacks that are ranged attacks across level range, the average percentage of attacks that will land on a player who is not a melee target with taunt. There's a whole range of factors. So basically, as long as we've got 35% range defense in the mid range, it's probably going to be good enough for most of the encounters. Now, there is a strong caveat to that because the aggro system was very recently changed as of this stream. And that aggro system change has effectively broken mob encounters at a very low level. Soft cap does not mean what it means anymore. And this I'm probably going to have to go into in a very more detailed video stream later on. But previously in City of Heroes, in order to survive X number of mobs that have potential aggro, you needed around 80 to 85% resistance to a damage type. So you could there are some archetypes that could make it with 75% resistance. So Scrappers and Sentinels, there are cases in which they could handle X number of mobs under the old aggro system. But those situations are very, very contrived. For the most part, you'd have to be a Chaldean or an Arachnos or a Brute or a tank to survive X number of mobs using resist as a component. Now, on top of that, you would need the 45% soft cap to that particular damage type. So if you wanted to be if you're going up against smashing enemies, you needed to have 45% smashing. If you're going up against fire, you needed to have 45% fire. Now, on top of having 80 to 85% resist, soft cap 2 type defense here, you would also need 22 hit point per second regeneration. Now, if you could meet those three metrics, you could fend off into short of an enemy landing a debuff and removing your defense, you could fend off X number of mobs impacting X number of damage. You could survive most of the damage spikes. There's a few that you couldn't, simply because of debuff, but you could survive most of the damage strike that the game could natively throw at you under the new aggro conditions. And again, I'm going to have to go into this deeper because this legitimately broke the game on a fundamental level. Even if you have a character with hard capped resist, as in you're at 90% 90% resist to damage type, and you have soft cap to that damage type. You have the soft cap to smashing, lethal energy, negative, fire, cold, whatever, melee range AoE. You have a soft cap, and you have 56 hit point per second regeneration or higher. Under the new aggro rules, enemy mobs can still flatten you. Now, consider that for a second. Under the new conditions, under the changes that were made at a very low level, the amount of damage output that can come from X number of mobs is more than tripled. No, you're not misunderstanding me. It's more than tripled. It's not just one or two enemies attacking. It's literally every enemy that is in a mob that is within attack range has the capability now to land an attack on a player. And that breaks the game. And it's disturbing. I am understanding that there is amount of backlash, and I know that a number of people are looking for builds to fix this. All right, there are no builds to fix this. This is a fundamental problem. Changes were made by developers who had no idea what kind of changes they were making. It really is just that simple. Now, again, I'm going to have to go into this in more detail. Enough time has passed since the changes where I don't feel that I would be singling the developers out. They've had time to roll the changes back. They haven't. That's a big problem. When you make a mistake and someone calls you on it, you need to own up to it and say, oops, we screwed up. We'll roll it back. How do we fix this? And again, I need to go into that in a separate video because the player who requested this build was very concerned about how other builds were performing. And I wound up having to give them near the same explanation as to why their previously very playable character suddenly had every single debt badge that the game offered. And that's just because the aggro system is broke. Uh, and yes, there were stated objectives for the aggro system to meet per point. None of those objectives were objectively, that is to say, demonstratively, visibly speaking, met. I haven't posted a video on that. I haven't done anything on that because honestly, I gave the developers the benefit of the doubt. I gave them time to, okay, this is screwed up. You messed up. Apologize. Roll it back. Torch the changes. Let's start over. What were you trying to accomplish? That didn't happen. So, well, now I'm back to doing build videos. I've got to address the elephant in the room, and I've got to make sure that the City of Heroes player base is correctly informed as to what went wrong, why it went wrong, and more importantly, what steps may have to be taken in order to ensure that destructive changes to the game don't happen. I'm Aurian Archive, and that's really all I got for you tonight. Get this build sent off to the player who requested it, and we'll see what happens. Catch you later.